The scene starts off with Claudius and Gertrude welcoming two new characters who are making their first appearance in the play. Hamlet's friends from childhood, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Claudius speaks to them about Hamlet's recent behavioral changes and asks Rosencrantz and Guildenstern to spend some time with Hamlet. He wants them to try and find out what has caused Hamlet's recent transformation. Gertrude says that if they do help, they shall receive such thanks as fits a king's remembrance. In essence, she's suggesting that they'll be paid for doing Claudius this favor. Then, Polonius approaches the king and queen with two updates. Firstly, Voltimand and Cornelius have come back from Norway. If you recall, in Act 1, Scene 2, one of Claudius's first orders as king was to send the two messengers away with a letter for Norway, the King of Norway. Claudius wanted Norway to keep young Fortinbras from threatening and pressuring Denmark. Secondly, Polonius thinks that he's found out why Hamlet has been acting crazy lately. Claudius obviously wants to hear the details of both updates right away. But Polonius, being the funny old man that he is, wants them to hear the news about Norway first, so that he can build up suspense for his more exciting update on Hamlet.
Give first admittance to the ambassadors. My news shall be the fruit to that great feast.
So he goes off to quickly fetch the messengers. Meanwhile, Gertrude reveals why she thinks Hamlet is acting strange.
He tells me, my sweet queen, that he hath found the head and source of all your son's distemper. I doubt it is none other but the main, his father's death and our over-hasty marriage.
Shortly after, Polonius returns with Voltimand and Cornelius, who have good news for the king. According to the ambassadors, Norway thought that Fortinbras's preparations for war were against Poland. When he investigated the matter, he found out that Fortinbras was in fact preparing to strike against Denmark. Furious that his nephew would go behind his back, Norway threatened to arrest his nephew, at which point Fortinbras swore to never threaten Denmark again. Old Norway was so happy with this outcome that he actually rewarded Fortinbras with money and permission for Fortinbras's troops to march through Denmark on their way to Poland. The ambassadors present Claudius with a letter from Norway, who promises that Denmark will have safety as Norway's troops pass through. And with that, they are dismissed. Now, Polonius is very excited to update Claudius about why Hamlet has gone crazy. Again, in a very roundabout manner of speaking, he explains that Hamlet was in love with his daughter, Ophelia. As proof, he pulls out and reads aloud some love letters that Hamlet wrote to Ophelia. He explains that he forced Ophelia to reject Hamlet, and since that time, Hamlet has changed and gone crazy. Polonius is absolutely sure that he's right about this, and says that he wouldn't even mind having his head cut off if he's wrong, which is rather funny because we know that he's wrong. He then says that if the circumstances allow, he'll find out the truth, which, despite his confidence, alludes to the fact that he doesn't know the whole truth in the first place. Claudius is intrigued.
How may we try it further? You know, sometimes he walks 4 hours together, here in the lobby. So he does indeed. At such a time, I'll lose my daughter to him. Be you and I behind an arras, and then mark the encounter. If he love her not, and be not from his reason fallen thereon, let me be no assistant for a state, but keep a farm and carters. We will try it.
Just as Claudius agrees to Polonius's plan, Hamlet happens to wander into the scene. Claudius and Gertrude exit the scene, allowing Polonius to further investigate Hamlet in a one-on-one situation. Polonius tries to talk to Hamlet, but Hamlet's responses are all seemingly incomprehensible. It's interesting because Hamlet, the witty, masterful word player who says things full of double meanings, is having a conversation with Polonius, who we know goes on and on, always getting sidetracked with a lot of words. To make a long story short, if this were a boxing match, Polonius is completely outclassed by Hamlet, who even makes fun of Polonius right to his face without him knowing it. At this point, Polonius is even more convinced that Hamlet is crazy, so he goes off to prepare the setup that he has planned between Hamlet and Ophelia. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern find Hamlet. Remember, they were sent by the king and queen to spy on him. But Hamlet picks up on this right away. Amidst his crazy talk where he outwits them, Hamlet manages to force his old friends to reveal the fact that they didn't come to see him for sentiment or friendship. They admit that they were actually sent by the king and queen. As soon as Hamlet confirms this, he tells them that for some reason, life's just not what it used to be. He doesn't exercise anymore, and he just doesn't see the world as a good place these days. Rosencrantz takes the opportunity to try and cheer Hamlet up by mentioning that some of Hamlet's favorite actors are on the way to the castle. A trumpet sounds in the distance, signaling that the acting troupe has arrived in the castle. At this point, Hamlet tells Rosencrantz that he's only crazy sometimes. Other times, he's perfectly fine and can think clearly. Polonius re-enters the scene to tell Hamlet that the actors are on their way, and Hamlet, once again, outwits him and makes fun of him without Polonius knowing. As the actors enter the scene, Hamlet enthusiastically greets them and has a special request. He wants them to recite part of a play that he once watched this group perform. One of the actors delivers the lines, and we learn that the lines are from a play which loosely mirrors Hamlet's situation. A son, whose father was murdered, is motivated to take action and kill his father's killer. With the speech finished, Hamlet rudely tells Polonius to give the actors a place to stay, and pulls one of the actors aside to make a special request. He wants them to perform a play called The Murder of Gonzago, and he also wants to add 12 to 16 lines that he wrote to that play. The actor agrees, and everyone leaves Hamlet to himself once again. Alone, Hamlet reveals how shameful it is that the actor could bring himself to tears in a mere reenactment. Hamlet criticizes himself, thinking, if an actor can do that much, what am I doing? He wonders to himself how much more the actor would be able to do if he were in Hamlet's situation. And so at the end of his soliloquy, he reveals his new plan. When the actors perform the play with Hamlet's newly added lines, he's going to pay close attention to Claudius's reaction. Hamlet thinks that if Claudius is guilty, the guilt will be explicitly evident while watching the play. He realizes that he can't fully trust the ghost yet, and that he'll have to see for himself if the king is guilty or not.